So good evening, everybody. Let's start with our motivation. And coming back again and again to the fact that we have the opportunity to meet the Dharma and practice it. And think for a moment what your life would be like had you not met the Buddha's teachings. Had you not had the explanation about the mind and the way it functions. Had you not learned the thought transformation teachings. And what would your life be like now? And what would your future lives be like? So when we really think of that, it can be a bit frightening to see how our mind would be without any awareness of the Dharma. And so when we realize that, then it makes us appreciate the fact that we've met the teachings and have the ability to study and practice them. And it also helps us to have compassion for all the people who haven't had the opportunity to meet the Buddha's teachings, and that we have some responsibility towards them to help them because they're just like us, and also because they've been so instrumental in providing all the conditions for us to be able to practice. So we can't just go on our merry way, enjoying the Dharma without thinking of the situation of others. And so let's call up our compassion, and especially the resolve to act upon that compassion, and then choosing to become a fully awakened one, as that will enable us to actualize the aims of our compassion. And so with that kind of motivation, then we'll share the Dharma this evening. Okay, so we're at the very end of chapter 6, which is about how to abandon the afflictions. So the concluding verse is verse 150, and it is about how to cultivate the antidotes that totally destroy the afflictions and their seeds. So the verse reads, "Afflictions will never remain in the mind of one who understands the reality of the abiding and so forth of consciousness." Okay, so we have to abandon all the afflictions, understanding that the three realms, the desire realm, form realm, formless realm, are all like illusions, since they appear truly existent, but they don't exist in that way. And since their arising, abiding, and disintegration lack any kind of inherent existence. So our whole samsaric existence and the whole world of samsara, internal and external, lacks any kind of inherent existence. It's something that's completely dependent on other factors. And so when we see how it's dependent, we get an idea of how it can change. And we also get an idea of how it is not independent and thus lacks any existence from its own side. Okay? So it's empty. And so the afflictions will never remain in the mind of someone who understands the arising, abiding, and disintegration of the abiding, the arising, abiding, and disintegration of the consciousness doesn't have even an atom of inherent existence. Okay, so when we really see emptiness and really see that the consciousness, and here it pinpoints the consciousness, realizing the emptiness of the mind. Why does it emphasize that? I mean, if the emptiness of all phenomena is the same in the sense of being the lack of true existence, why don't we just realize the emptiness of the lamp and the emptiness of the cup? Why do they stress the emptiness of the mind if all these emptinesses are exactly the same? And when you have direct perception of one, you have direct perception of them all. Okay, so why does it emphasize realizing the emptiness of the mind? Because the mind, as a conventional object, is different from the cup and the telephone and the fork. And realizing its emptiness has a special impact on us, because we tend, mostly when we think about the self or I, mostly what the basis of designation is the mind. Sometimes it's the body, but when we really get down to it and we think of, dying and going into the next life, what is the thing that we cling on to the most as being me? It's the mind, isn't it? So realizing that the consciousness is empty of true existence, is very, very important. And also by doing that, we see that the afflictions themselves are empty of true existence, that the afflictions are not some kind of concrete things. And sometimes when we think of our mental afflictions, we think of them as like these concrete things, like we say, I'm just an angry person, yeah, or I have, there's so much anger inside me. And we have this idea as if anger with this solid clump of something that's like always there inside of us and is going to explode at any moment, And that's not what anger is, okay? When we look, what anger is there's different mental events, many different mental events that have the common traits of arising due to exaggerating the negative qualities of someone and something, and then wanting to destroy them or get away from them. And on the basis of all those, different moments of mind that have that kind of trait, then we give the label anger on the mental factor that colors that mind. That's it. Okay? Does that change how you feel about your anger a little bit? Instead of thinking, I'm an angry person, as if we're permeated by anger, and anger's there all, inside of our cells and body and seeping out of our skin, and it's inherently who we are. It's not. It's just a name given to a mental factor that has, that appears at different moments of time and has certain qualities. That's it. Nothing solid about our anger. And so, realizing how the anger is dependent, and especially how it's dependent on term and concept on being merely labeled. It gives us a whole other feeling for what our afflictions are, and therefore what it's going to take to remove the afflictions. Are you getting what I mean? Can you get some feeling about anger is just a label that we put on some moments of mind that have some common traits. That's it. Guilt or shame, it's just a label that is given, something that exists by being merely labeled in dependence upon certain moments of consciousness that have some common traits to them. That's all it is. It's not like something there, like I was saying, crawling inside of you, like, permanent, concrete. Yeah. So I think that's very, very helpful for us to contemplate, and then we can begin to see how understanding the lack of true existence of the mind can be very liberating. Okay? And of course, when we see the emptiness of the mind, if we see it inferentially, then just by shifting the mind to another topic, we automatically, or another object, we automatically, understand the emptiness of that object. And when we have direct perception of emptiness, then, all at one time, you see the emptiness of all things. Yeah? Okay? And so if someone who gains familiarity with emptiness, that kind of person, the afflictions are not going to be able to arise in their mind. So it doesn't happen all suddenly. At first the afflictions get weak, and weaker and weaker and weaker, and then when we have direct perception of emptiness, we're able to start eliminating them completely from the mind. Okay? But at first, at the beginning of our practice, like now, what we have to do is familiarize ourselves with the antidotes to the manifest afflictions. Okay? And so really work with the gross afflictions, the manifest ones. Okay? So, like our gross anger that comes up on a daily basis, or our gross attachment and greed, or our gross grudge holding, or our gross bitterness. Okay? So really looking at those things and dealing with the specific antidotes to those different mental states or mental factors. Okay? So when we're talking about the manifest afflictions like this, then the Buddha taught different antidotes for different afflictions. So for example, when our mind's afflicted by attachment and attachment and greed, we contemplate impermanence, we contemplate the defects of samsara. When our mind's afflicted by anger, we contemplate love, we contemplate fortitude. Okay? So, what we think about is going to be different in terms, the antidote we apply is going to be different according to the individual manifest affliction. Yeah? And so if we practice that, and especially learning the thought training teachings, like we're going to be receiving this weekend, those teachings are so helpful in dealing with the gross manifest emotions that come, in our daily life that really cause so many problems. And so we learn those and we practice it, and that helps our mind get calmer. And then through that, we're able to develop concentration, and we're able to develop wisdom, and it's through that wisdom combined with concentration that we're then able to eliminate all the afflictions completely from the mind stream by cutting them at the root. Okay, and that's done by the wisdom that realizes emptiness. Okay, so the wisdom realizing emptiness is the universal antidote that uproots all the afflictions because it destroys their root, the one thing they boil down to, which is ignorance. Okay? But, on a grosser level, the different branches of the different afflictions, we need to learn the specific antidotes to those to manage them, before we've realized emptiness. Okay? And so then there's and also when we realize emptiness, it not only removes the afflictions, but also the seeds of the afflictions. So the seeds mean like that they're one of the abstract composites. So remember of the three kinds of impermanent phenomena, form, mind, and abstract composites. So the seeds are the third one. So it's like the seed of anger is like, I was angry yesterday, I'm not angry right now, but I haven't eliminated anger from my mind, because the seed of anger, the potency to get angry again, is still there. And then if I meet certain conditions, then that potency is going to change into anger. Okay, so we want to eliminate not only the manifest anger, but also the potencies that carry that potential, from one moment to the next, even though there's some time in between when that affliction isn't in our mind, or manifest in our mind. And so then there's a summarizing verse that says, transmigrators governed by afflictions like desire, which prevent activities for the attainment of awakening, are conveyed to the happiness of liberation by teaching them to become familiar with love and repulsiveness, and by teaching them suchness. Okay, so transmigrators governed by afflictions like desire, us, in other words, and this desire and the afflictions, the afflictions like desire, which prevent activities for the attainment of awakening. Okay? So the afflictions not only make us miserable now, but they prevent us from attaining awakening. Okay? So it's not like something that makes us miserable now and then something else prevents us from attaining awakening. It's the same thing that does both. Okay? So those transmigrators are conveyed to the happiness of liberation, in other words, can attain liberation, by teaching them to become familiar with love and repulsiveness. Okay? Because love is the specific antidote to anger and, all the whole group of emotions that fall under that broad spectrum of anger, like irritation, frustration, annoyance, rebellion, belligerence, spite, and so on and so forth. We have a lot of words for different varieties of that emotion. Okay, so by meditating on love, and then also meditating on repulsiveness, because repulsiveness counteracts the infatuation we have with objects of attachment when we see that they're not really so gorgeous, And so here we really start out with our body, because our own body and the bodies of other people are the things that we get generally the most attached to. And sexual attachment is one of the strongest ones is the strongest one we have. So you start meditating on what the inside of people's bodies look like, and that really counteracts your sexual attachment, and you start contemplating, what your own body is, and it also, cuts your attachment to your own body. Okay, and by reducing that attachment, then automatically attachment to food, attachment to clothing and jewelry and decorations and all those other things kind of go away, because who wants to decorate a bag of filth? Okay, so that's why it says these migrators will be conveyed to the happiness of liberation by teaching them to become familiar with love and repulsiveness. So those are the antidotes to the manifest and very gross forms of attachment and anger. And by teaching them suchness. So suchness here is synonymous with emptiness. Yeah, and so by teaching them emptiness, then sentient beings are able to cut the root of all the afflictions by realizing how things actually exist. Okay? Yeah, because the whole root of the problem is we don't realize how things actually exist. And instead we think there's some kind of external objective reality out there that we're perceiving. And then, of course, if it's external and objective and exists exactly as we think it does, then, we're constantly, as my mother says, knocking our head against the wall. Yeah, but when we realize it's not external and objective as some concrete thing, and that a lot of it depends on our mental state, and then our whole way of seeing it is completely diluted by thinking that it does exist objective, when actually it exists by being merely labeled. Okay, so when we start to see that, then it really takes the air out of the balloon. Okay, so that's what we want to go for. So chapter 6 was about abandoning the afflictions, because that's what we need to do if we're going to practice the Bodhisattva path. Okay, we need to start with abandoning the afflictions. We also need to abandon the cognitive obscurations, but we've got to at least start with the afflictions. Okay? So then chapter 7 is abandoning attachment to sense objects on which afflictions focus. Okay, so chapter 6 was abandoning the afflictions, and now we're going to go into the objects of these afflictions, the sense objects. But in doing so, we're also going to talk a lot about different kinds of afflictions too. Okay? So, considering in this chapter, we're going to consider the disadvantages of cyclic existence. So this is going to be like, in terms of meditating on the Four Noble Truths, meditating on the first true dukkha and true origins of dukkha, and in terms of the Lam Rim, the 3 levels of practitioner, the path in common with the middle practitioner. Okay, and so by cultivating an understanding of the disadvantages of cyclic existence, then we cultivate, we see why it's necessary to have a sense of danger about it, or a sense of fear. Now here, when they use the word fear of cyclic existence, we shouldn't think of it as the ordinary kind of fear we have. It's not referring to the fear of when, you're just so afraid of something and you're panicked and you can't function. That kind of fear is not what we want to develop about as a response to cyclic existence, because that doesn't help at all. It's exaggerated. So what it means by fear is an awareness of danger, a sense of caution. Okay? And it's wise to have a sense of caution about certain things in life, isn't it? When you're merging on the highway, it's good to have a sense of caution about the danger of getting in a car accident. So, you might use the word fear to describe that, but it doesn't refer to our what we usually say fear is. Okay, so according to Buddhism, how the language is used, the word fear can apply to 2 different things. One is, freaked out fear, and one is wisdom fear. Okay, in English we would usually say an awareness of danger, a sense of caution, something like that. Okay. But we definitely need to have that about cyclic existence, because as long as we see cyclic existence as fantastic, we're not going to have any wish to be free of it. And without the wish to be free of it, we're not going to practice the method to be free of it. We're just going to stay getting born again and again and again. Okay, so first we have to contemplate the disadvantages of cyclic existence in order to give up the polluted actions that cause it. Okay, so when we're talking about cyclic existence, what's the cause of cyclic existence? Well, the first immediate cause, going backwards, is polluted karma. Our actions of body, speech, and mind. Then, what is the cause of polluted karma? The afflictions. Okay, so the mental states of ignorance, anger, and attachment, and jealousy, and pride, and miserliness, and all those things. And what are all of those things rooted in? Ignorance. Okay, so we start off considering the general faults of cyclic existence and in order to develop some kind of sense of caution of it, or a sense of its danger. Okay? So verse 151 says, "When there is no end at all to this ocean of suffering, why are you childish people not afraid of drowning in it?" Beautiful verse, isn't it? And that's really it. Yeah, when there's no end to this ocean of suffering. Ocean is huge, When you stand on the border and you look, you can't see an end to the ocean. So it's an ocean of dukkha, an ocean of suffering. And there's no end to it at all, as long as we keep creating the causes for it. Ignorance, afflictions, polluted karma. And so as long as we keep creating the causes, there's no end. So, in that case, why are you childish people not afraid of drowning in it? It's kind of like, it would be like, if, like being, let's say a cow had human intelligence, and you were in a cattle ranch or a cattle farm, and you're all squished together and stuffed and fed hormones and no freedom and everything like that, and you were perfectly satisfied living like that, even thinking, well, they're going to come butcher me, but later they're going to come butcher me, and okay, it's a little bit tight in this cage, but it's not so bad, it could be worse. And so you just stay in that cage waiting for the butcher to come. Yeah. So that's kind of like us. From the viewpoint of the Aryas, it's like, what are you people doing? For goodness sake, what do you think you're going to get out of living in cyclic existence? Yeah, where all you do is get born, get old, get sick, and die again and again and again. And in between, you don't get what you want, you get what you want, and you're disappointed in it, and you get all sorts of things that you don't want. Again and again and again, in upper realms, in lower realms. There's no peace, there's no pausing point, there's no place where you can rest and say, okay, let me have a little break for a while, samsara is a little bit too much, give me a break, and then I'll come back and, try and do something. It's just happening all the time. And so from the viewpoint of the Aryas looking at us, they say, like, what in the world are you guys doing? Yeah. So, you know, and it's because people in general have absolutely no awareness of cyclic existence and what it is, you know. It's like people are born, and you're born, and there you are, and there's your family and your country, and you're this and you're that, and I like this and I don't like this, and I want that and I don't want that, and give me this and get that away from me. And you know, all the time just grabbing for something we think is going to make us happy and pushing it away at something we think is going to make us unhappy, and every single day from morning till night, and even in our dreams doing this. And where does it lead us? At the end of the day, we all die. And it doesn't matter how rich you are, because when you die, you abandon it all. And it doesn't matter how famous you are, because when you die, you're no longer you. You go on to another life, and you know, you can't take your fame with you. And even if you think, well, all these people back on earth at least will know my name, in 100 years from now, nobody's going to know who you are. And even if they do know who you are and they're writing biographies about you, all their biographies are going to be conjecture, because none of them know who you really are from the inside. Yeah? I mean, we read biographies of people and we think, oh, that's who that person is. Yeah? Well, you're alive now. Do you think anybody could write an accurate biography about you and really understand who you are? No. So thinking that after you die, someone's going to, you know, you're going to be famous, and they're going to write, somebody's going to do their PhD on you, you know, and write the biography and put it in the library, you know, and then after you're born in some other realm, you can look back and say, oh, look, you know, like, oh, look, I was President of the United States at that time. I was Speaker of the House, you know. I mean, in 100 years from now, do you think, how are people going to look back at what's going on right now in this country? Yeah? All the people here are going to be dead. Yeah? And some people, you know, all these kids are going to write term papers and things. Well, they had the opportunity to do something about climate change, but they were too busy, you know, doing something else. And so, you know, now this is what our world's like, or, you know, I mean, who knows what the result of our actions will be in 100 years from now. Yeah, but anyway, we won't be around, and so being famous is like thinking, you know, you're going to leave a legacy of being famous, and that's going to be fulfilling. That's a bunch of garbage. Yeah? And yet, you know, we all like to think, oh, I'm important, you know, other people talk about me, I'm important. You know, we were in the dentist's office today, and so they had People magazine. And I was commenting to Venerable Chuni, we were looking, who was it, Kirk Douglas's son?
Douglas, his wife,
and,
blah, blah.
Yeah, his wife, blah, blah. We don't even know her name, poor lady. And it was, what was the title on the magazine? Something about, can their marriage be saved, or, you know.
One more try.
One more, yeah, something like that. And I was thinking, you know, would you want your intimate relationship discussed in a public magazine on the cover? You know, and we were talking about, you know, well, lots of people would. And then she pointed out, and lots of people would want to read it too. And we just sat there and scratched our heads, because we hear so many people's marital problems that the idea of buying a magazine to read about more marital problems is ridiculous. You know, how is that going to be interesting? You know? And you think about it, and then these people thinking, oh, look, I'm on the front page of the magazine. I must be really important. all these people in dentist office across the country are reading about me. And look at that picture of me on the cover. I look so good. Yeah? So from the viewpoint of the Arya beings, they look at what they're doing and they're scratching their heads. And I mean, calling us childish is, you can see how patient they're being and how compassionate, because we're really worse than childish. Although we think we're so clever, so intelligent, I mean, Ted Cruz right now in D.C., and I mean, all these guys think they're so clever. And I love these pictures, how they always take pictures of representatives and senators. They're always walking somewhere. Yeah? There's a certain kind... Have you noticed? They're all dressed prim and proper in their suit. Makes me wonder what they look like in their jammies. But they're prim and proper in their suit, and they're walking with this certain kind of, I'm a legislator, I have power. You're the press, you want to talk to me, well, good luck. And inside, I want to talk to you, come and ask me something. But you're striding with this certain serious look, thinking you're some big shot. Yeah? And they all look alike. All these pictures look alike. I mean, some guys are fatter and some are thinner, like that. But that walk of, and it's like, you guys should be out working in the fields, and then maybe you'll get some sense knocked into your head. Yeah? I mean, send them out to work and be like average Americans. Send them to work in factories, send them to work in fields. They can come and help us here in the forest. And then maybe, get this kind of self-importance, get rid of it. Yeah? Because the self-importance is, it's destroying our country. Excuse me for getting diverted, but
the Aryas are puzzled.
But the Aryas are really what in the world are you guys doing? Yeah. Okay, and to think, this is going to keep happening, cyclic existence. One Ted Cruz after another one. I mean, in different forms, different manifestations, different names, But, so, the only solution is we've got to get out. Yeah. Okay. And that doesn't mean moving to the moon. Anyway, we can't because they shut down NASA.
They do?
Yep. 90% of NASA is furloughed. Okay, so then in the explanation of this verse, Gyaltsab Je goes a lot into talking about the causes of samsara as the afflictions, and in particular the fetters. So the fetters, the Sanskrit word is samyojana. And there's different listings of the fetters. And I want to go through these because I think it's actually quite interesting. And those of you who studied the paths and grounds, you'll remember, some of it because we talked about these in the context of the paths and grounds. Okay, so remember there's two basic Abhidharma systems. From the Tibetan perspective, One is Vasubandhu's, and that's based on the treasury of knowledge. And then the other one is Asanga's, Vasubandhu's brother, and his is based on the compendium of knowledge. And Vasubandhu's is called the lower system because it's mostly Vaibhasika and Sautrantrika tenets, and Asanga's is the upper system. Okay. So, the Compendium of Knowledge lists 9 fetters. Okay, so the first 6 are the 6 root afflictions that we have when we study low rig. Yeah, the 6 root afflictions. So attachment, specifically sensual attachment. Second is hostility or anger. Third is pride or conceit or arrogance. I don't like translating it as pride because we also have a good kind of pride, don't we? When you take pride in your good work or something, and that's certainly not an affliction. And also, I think pride is a little bit too placid for this kind of affliction. Arrogance is a little bit heavier. Conceit, Conceit that English word has a certain smack to it. Does it have for you? That person's so conceited. It reminds me, that's 6th grade coming back to me. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so conceit, ignorance, and then deluded doubt, or sometimes it's just called plain old doubt. But what it's referring to is the doubt that is inclined toward what is not accurate. Okay, and then the 6th one is afflicted views. And so here, in talking about the fetters, well, first of all, in the low reg perspective, we have 5 afflicted views, remember? Yeah, we have view of a personality or view of the transitory collection, okay? And then the view grasping the 2 extremes of eternalism and nihilism. The view of the supreme, thinking that the wrong views are correct. Then you have wrong view, and then also you have the view of bad ethics and practices, okay? So here, in the context of the fetters, according to Asanga, afflicted views refers only to the first 3. So view of a personal identity, that one we call jikta, or view of the transitory collection. Second, view of the extremes, so that's eternalism and nihilism or annihilation, and wrong views. Okay, wrong views like enlightenment is impossible and 3 jewels don't exist, karma doesn't exist. So that's what's meant by afflicted views. The 7th one, the 7th fetter, is holding unworthy objects as supreme. So what it means is holding erroneous conceptions as supreme. And so this includes the last 2 views, holding wrong views as supreme, and holding bad ethics and modes of conduct as supreme. Okay, both of which hold the first 3 afflicted views as being the best and most correct views to have. Okay, so that's the 7th one, those last 2, because they fall under the category holding unworthy objects as supreme. So one is holding, the first 3 views, the first 3 as supreme, and the other one is holding bad ethics and modes of conduct as supreme. Okay. Then the 8th one is jealousy, and the 9th one is miserliness or stinginess. And then anger, miserliness, and jealousy occur only in the desire realm. Okay, because remember we have the 3 realms of existence, desire, form, and formless. And when you're born in the, what are you looking for?
The 9th one.
The 9th one is miserliness. So we have the 3 realms, and some afflictions only occur in the desire realm, so like anger and miserliness and jealousy. Yeah, Yeah, because when you develop the states of deep concentration to be born in the form of formless realms, then you have to have suppressed, not eliminated, but suppressed anger, miserliness, and jealousy. Okay, so that's according to a Sangha. According to Vasubandhu, and also, which is like the Pali tradition, then they list the 10 fetters, and they divide them into the 10 lower fetters and the 10 higher fetters. Are you having some memory of this from Paths and Grounds? Okay, so the first 5 are listed, are called the lower fetters because they lead us to rebirth in the desire realm. And then the last 5 are the higher fetters, and when we eradicate those, then we become arhats. Okay? So for the first 5 fetters, the ones that keep us in the desire realm, you have view of personal identity, so Jigta, our old friend, and how it's defined by Vasubandhu and the Pali tradition is different than how it's defined by the Prasangikas. There's a big difference in how they define this one. Okay? Then second is doubt. Okay? Third is the view holding bad ethics and modes of conduct as supreme. The fourth is sensual desire, and the fifth is malice or ill will. Okay, so the view of the personal identity, so we're a compound of 5 aggregates that we call myself, and we take those aggregates to be our identity. And so this view holds our identity or our self to exist within the 5 aggregates or in relationship to the 5 aggregates. So from the viewpoint of the lower schools, it's going to be thinking that, there's a permanent, partless, independent self, or there's a self-sufficient, substantially existent self. Okay. Then doubt. The second one is a vacillating mind that equivocates between Dharma knowledge, Dharma points that are important for liberation. Okay? So, for example, doubting that the Buddha is fully enlightened. Doubting that the Dharma is the ultimate truth. Doubting that the the true paths actually are able to eliminate cyclic existence and bring about cessation. Doubting that the Arya Sangha has realized the true paths. So all these kind of doubts, if you have those doubts, then it becomes difficult to practice because you don't have trust and confidence in, the path you're practicing and the beings who are practicing it. So it's going to cause a lot of, you're not going to really be able to practice wholeheartedly. And then the view holding bad ethics and modes of conduct as supreme. The Theravadas translated as clinging to rules and observances. So actually the word sila, one group translates it as bad ethics, and the other one as clinging to rules. Okay? Interesting to see just how you translate. And then modes of conduct. Then for one, translate it and see it like that, and the others see it as observances. And so they have a slightly different explanation, the Pali and Sanskrit traditions of what this one is. But it clings to mistaken codes of ethics and mistaken practices as virtuous and as the path to enlightenment. So, for example, thinking that extreme ascetic practices of self-mortification are going to bring you enlightenment, and so not fasting for long periods of time or, torturing the body. So that would be, a wrong kind of observance that you think is going to bring you to enlightenment, but it's not. Or sitting in fire, yeah, or doing Brahminical rituals with which emphasize that the exact way you do the ritual is most important, not what goes on in your mind. Yeah, and so we can see that with some people, it's like they don't try and change their mind with the ritual, but they're focused just on doing the ritual exactly according to the recipe without looking at the state of mind that's supposed to be transformed. So that would be another example. Okay? So like other afflicted views, this holds that what is opposite of the truth to be true. Okay? And then the fourth one is sensual desire, so attraction to objects of sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. And then malice, the wish to harm another living being. Yeah, really thinking about that. Okay, so those are the first five, the lower fetters. And then the 6 through 10 are the higher fetters. So the lower fetters are eliminated when you attain non-returner. Okay, because when you're a stream enter, when you're a once returner, you still can be reborn as in the desire realm. When you're a non-returner, you can't. Okay, and then the 5 upper fetters are eliminated by arhatship. So the 5 upper ones, number 6 is desire for existence in the form realm, so attachment to being born in the form realm. Number 7 is desire for existence in the formless realm. Okay, and so these two are attached to these 2 planes of existence and want to go on abiding there. So, they're attached to those deep states of samadhi. Excuse me. They're attached to the deep states of samadhi, and so don't practice to gain the wisdom that will get them out of cyclic existence. Okay. And then number 8 is conceit. Okay, so the fundamental conceit here is the subtle conceit of an existing I. Okay, so the conceit I am. Yeah, so this differs from the view of a personal identity, which is a conceptual view holding a permanent self. Okay, according to this school. So after the view of a personal identity is eliminated, you're not thinking of yourself as some kind of soul, some kind of permanent self. So then you're not thinking, I am this or I am that, but you still have the thought, I am. Okay, so this conceit of I is just that thought, I am. Yeah, which is more subtle than thinking, I'm American, or I'm African American, or I'm this, or, I'm white, I'm purple, whatever it is. So the thought I am still arises. So even though a non-returner knows the thought I am to be deluded and not be true, and they don't hold on to the idea I am or identify with it, still the thought I am arises spontaneously.
Even though a non-returner?
Non-returner. So a non-returner is no longer reborn in the desire realm.
Right.
Okay, and they've eliminated the view of an identity view according to this system.
Right.
Okay, but the thought, the conceit I am, still remains in the mind. Yeah. And when you think about, the conceit I am, to me that really, just that whole grasping at a truly existent self. It's so, when we think of conceit, I think of something that's really over the top. Somebody who's conceited is really over the top. in thinking that they're special. And from the perspective of emptiness, thinking that there's a real I, it's over the top, isn't it? It's conceited. Just to think I am, the conceit of I am, it's like totally uncalled for from the perspective of emptiness. Okay?
So how do you get in touch with that?
First we have... Yeah. Yeah, you have to see how you grasp the I, how you conceive of the I, what you feel the I to be. Okay? Then the 9th one is excitement or restlessness. We talked about this yesterday with Jeffrey. And this is another one that where the Pali and Sanskrit traditions have different perspectives, different definitions of these. Because from the Sanskrit tradition, in the context of developing serenity, excitement is when your mind is carried away by an object of attachment. Now clearly here, if this is a higher fetter, it's not talking about objects of sensual attachment like it is in the context of developing serenity. So here it said, and here maybe a restlessness is a better translation of the term, is present in any mind that's not liberated. So this hindrance may still arise for a returner if he's not mindful and diligent, but he's able to overcome it quickly. Okay, so a certain, what it's saying is as long as the mind is not liberated, there's a certain restlessness there, a certain agitation due to the afflictions. Okay, and then 10 is ignorance. And so this is the primordial ignorance, that's the root of samsara. And according to Vasubandhu and the Pali system, it's blindness or unknowing regarding the true nature. So it's a fogginess, it's an obscuration that won't let you see how things actually exist. Yeah? Whereas for the prasangika, this is actively grasping things to exist in the opposite way from how they do exist. Okay? Okay, so we'll pause here for now. Questions?
So the first 5 mental are eliminated at the stage of non-returner, and then the non-returner works through the next 5.
Yes.
And then when they've subdued and eliminated all of that, then the arhat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, some of the ones, actually the first 3, view of a personal identity, doubt, and view holding bad ethics and modes of conduct as supreme, those 3 are eliminated by stream enterers. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
How does self-acceptance fit in with the whole process of working with the afflictions, and how do you make sure it doesn't become complacency?
Okay, so how does self-acceptance fit in, and how does it not become complacency? They don't really talk, in the text, they don't talk so much about self-acceptance. They have much more an attitude of we're going to fight these things. But our particular modern modern mentality, we get so self-critical. Yeah, that self-criticism becomes an obstacle in itself. And so in that context, when you have a lot of self-criticism, then you use self-acceptance or kindness to yourself as something to free you from that self-criticism so that you can then practice. But self-acceptance does not mean that you say, oh, yeah, I accept all these afflictions, hang out in my mind, I'm not going to try and do anything about you. Yeah. It's more an attitude of, okay, I have these difficulties right now. It does not mean I'm a bad person. I think that's what the point of self-acceptance is in a modern context, and why we talk about it, because we're so self-critical. Yeah. And, it could be that, His Holiness is always very firm about all sentient beings have the same afflictions, and all human beings do. But it could be that at certain points in history or in certain culture, different afflictions come out in different ways, or are stronger in different ways. Just as it is for different people. Some people have more of a problem, let's say, with attachment to possessions, and somebody else has more of a problem with attachment to people. Okay? Yeah?
So these higher fetters, the 6 and 7, that was attachment to being born in the form and in the formless realm?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and that was due to this desire for the meditative state?
Yeah. It's attachment to those meditative states, because they're very pleasant. Yeah. And compared to the desire realm, they're great. So great that they say that some non-Buddhists mistake them for liberation. And then just stay in those states as human beings, and then when they die, then there's trouble.
I don't quite get how ignorance, that's the primordial ignorance, that's the very root of samsara, is called higher. More subtle maybe, but...
Yeah, but higher here means that you have to, the lower fetters are eliminated earlier on the path. The higher fetters are eliminated later. So you have to have a higher realization to eliminate those. Okay, or stronger practice, a more in-depth penetration. Okay, that's what it means. Anything else?
So these ones that occur only in the desire realm. Seems like they should list those first.
What?
They should list those first.
Well, they do.
Well, except for they were, I think, if
Those
I'm
are
right, they were number 9, 2, and 8.
No, they're in the list of 10. The ones in the that.
Sorry, I went back a page. A Sangha system.
Oh, a Sangha system. Okay, yeah, a Sangha system. It's a different order.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah, but they all exist in the desire realm. It's just
Yeah, they all exist, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's not like you get some new afflictions in the higher. Got rid of those, and now I get some new ones. No. We're born with a full complement. Okay, so good to kind of, contemplate what these afflictions are and try and notice them in ourselves when they're active, and then see, kind of what situations make them arise in our mind. When they're in our mind, how do they affect it? How do they function? Yeah, and what are their effects on our mind? Where do they take us? And then in that way to develop some sense of caution, some awareness of the danger of following these afflictions.
So Vasubandhu's fetters he doesn't have? Then the root afflictions, except he breaks up the afflictive views and the doubts in it, but he doesn't have the anger, pride, jealousy, misery.
Well, no, Vasubandhu has sensual desire, so that's attached. Yeah.
Anger.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. For example, like miserliness in the first one would fall under kind of attachment in the second one. Pride in the first one would be conceit in the second one, like that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. To be continued. Yeah? How do you like having your innermost mind talked about publicly? Yeah, like a magazine cover. Yeah. Ignorance, attachment, anger, jealousy, pride, wrong views. Yeah, and we all have them.
All for $1.
Yeah.
Now you're getting personal.